Awayithandi awayifuni
NUMSA, yo NUMSA le.
ayiwafuna amaphutho
NUMSA le.
asiwafuna amakapeta
NUMSA le.
lesoshalesi
NUMSA le. Yo NUMSA le.
Hi, everybody, and we're back for another episode of Workers' Power. Today, we're going to be focusing on the international work of the union. And we have with us as our guest in studio, Comrade Zazi Nsibanyoni-Mugambi, who is the NUMSA HOD of Secretariat and also the acting head of international work at NUMSA. So stay tuned for more. Good day, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Workers' Power with me, Pax. And today we have as our guest Comrade Zazi Nsibanyoni-Mugambi, who is the NUMSA HOD of Secretariat and also the acting international officer. Welcome to Workers' Power. Thank you for joining us.
Ooh, glad to be here. I watch all the programs about time.
Oh, that's great. Yes, it is about time.
Yeah.
We're so grateful you're here.
Yeah.
And we're having her here really more than anything because we think it's important that NUMSA members must also understand a little bit of the international work that the union does. And obviously, as the acting international officer, this is the work that you are tasked with.
Yeah.
Could you talk to us a little bit about some of the international work that the union does and even some of the partnerships that we have with certain organizations?
Thanks, Pax. As you know, NUMSA is an internationalist union. I mean, in our constitution, in our preamble, it's very clear that we will have dialogue with international partners. We'll build NUMSA and be able to have strategic partnerships with people all around the globe. And when I arrived here, I found a very strong culture of that international collaboration, which is very exciting because it moves us past our borders and we're able to interact with international people, find out their stories and be able to relate it to ours in terms of the union, from collective agreements to campaigns that they're having that can help us and boost us, to sharing ideas of how they deal with employers. There's so much that you can gain. And in the short space of time that I've been here, I've gained a lot. And I think the work within the union is starting to really permeate and actually having direct,
Impact.
Impact, yeah. You can actually see it on the shop floor that, you know, the meetings that we're having, the training that we're having with international partners, the meetings we send people to is really starting to show on the ground. So, I mean, it's an exciting thing.
So I think what you've just said is obviously really important. And if you can give us just examples of some of the partnerships that we have with these organizations, how has the union benefited from these relationships?
So just to start off with, we obviously have a strong partnership with Industrial. They're a global federation.
They're a European federation. They represent like...
There are over 100 countries and different unions within those countries. So they're massive. It's a great relationship. I mean, they deal with almost all sectors. And how that has helped us as NUMSA is that they basically negotiate global collective agreements. For instance, you have Volkswagen, right, in South Africa. So we share, so basically they hold the companies to account. For instance, Volkswagen South Africa must not deviate in terms of workers' rights, collective, conditions of employment, etc., with what is happening in Germany and the European countries. So that's great because then we get to look at that and see whether in South Africa we are in line as NUMSA with those collective agreements. They have all sorts of trainings that they have. We run campaigns together. You know, they obviously have a strong interest in women and uplifting of women. So they have a lot happening around that. They deal in ICT, in mining, in energy. It's everything. So we gain from that. We get to send shop stewards, organizers there, and to give the South African perspective, the NUMSA perspective on what is happening. And we're able then to come back with perspective of other people from around the globe. So that's the partnership with Industrial is long-standing in NUMSA, and it's great. We even have Christine, who is there, Assistant General Secretary representing NUMSA.
One of our own.
Yeah.
Yes.
So we can be happy about that. And it's nice to have someone that, we can call our own there. I mean, NUMSA has been there a while.
Yeah.
So she's doing great work.
Yeah.
And she's also helping us, sort of give some steam to what we need to change in this country and putting us in touch with relevant people all over the world, which is great. And then, of course, we have ITF, which is the International Transport Workers Federation. They're also global, but they're focusing directly on the transport industry. So they have urban transport, civil aviation, dockers, inland transport, road and rail, so they now have gotten into tourism as ITF. And I mean, they're also very robust, our conferences are very different. You've been to one, Pax.
Yeah.
We engage, but they sort of have a different vibe and a structure. We had one last year and we were like, because we knew to the ITF. But what they do is great because they put motions up, countries talk, collaborate, and see what we need to do in terms of transportation. And I mean, we're doing great work with them. Right now, we're partnering with them with civil aviation. It's a key focus of the ITF right now and the dockers. With civil aviation, we're going to build campaigns, see how we grow. And, as NUMSA, a key focus is aviation. So we had a workshop here with the research department. We sent some shop stewards there in order to talk about aviation and just transition, which is something that is another story that is a big thing amongst all these international players,
Because it affects so many workers.
Correct. And this just transition.
So-called just.
And the different permutations and how it's interpreted, but it's almost like a buzz thing everywhere. So we're doing work, by the way, with the just energy transition with everyone from industrial to ITF to 3F to all of them. So it's obviously very topical at the moment. And
3F is a Danish union,
that's the next one. So 3F is Danish. They're also like a federation of trade unions, so to speak. We started a partnership with them last year. And I mean, they're assisting us with training of our shop stewards. We had a workshop where we identified our gaps and they basically want us to capacitate the people that we have, our organizers, to everyone, so that we are on the same page and what our organizers and our members put out there is aligned with the union perspective. And of course, they're also trying to talk to us about energy and how we talk about TVET colleges, how we reskill the members that we have. So right now we're in discussions with that around reskilling and obviously putting our perspective, because it's very easy to say, they do it like this in Denmark.
Yes.
But we also have to give them the lay of the land that in South Africa, these are our issues. We want a real just transition. We want an energy mix because we're not going to go from here to there like when you click your finger. We need work and we need an energy mix that the country can work with. We can't rush the transition.
Right.
We must make sure, the workers are protected, et cetera, et cetera. So it's very key, our participation with them, because we're also engaging in those forums with people like Busa and the MBI, who has been interesting to actually put the union's point of view because they don't speak to unions. So that's opened up that particular avenue. So we can actually say, this is what NUMSA is saying, and this is why we are saying it, and give the perspective of the workers. So the engagements, they are great. They're very interested in aviation and how we're going to look at future skills. So we're also partnering with that to get our shop stewards to go to Denmark and be able to see what they're doing there and be able to reskill, because we don't want to get lost, our members to get lost in this change, right?
Yeah.
We need to make sure they also, as technology changes, they're also reskilling themselves.
Yeah.
And then there's the FES, which...
FES stands for?
I can't pronounce it. It's
Friedrich
Engels,
something.
yes. So they also work with IF Metal, and they're doing a lot of work in the auto sector. So they've got a transformation network where we sit with auto companies from Ghana, from South Africa, and we basically share ideas around auto and collective agreements and how we can, look at BMW, look at Volkswagen, and how we can align ourselves as African trade unions. And then we're doing a little bit of work with the Swedish Workplace Forum.
Okay.
Where basically with the Swedish companies, and they're actually looking outside Swedish companies now, we are basically partnering them to train our shop stewards within those Swedish companies to be able to engage on finances, so that when they sit at the table, they're able to go toe to toe with employers. So they don't want us to be left behind as unions when we speak to employers. So there's training around finances, obviously what the union stands for, and around negotiation tactics, etc. So we're doing work with them on that.
Okay. So obviously very involved with a lot of very well-known global trade unions. What are some of the benefits that you can say, or some of the campaigns that NUMSA has been actively involved in just as a result of this interaction with some of these organizations?
Yeah, I mean, with ITF at the last conference, we were involved with the Get Me Home Safely campaign with ITF, which was basically around workers going home, females especially, going home from work to home, and the dangers they face around just the commute from the workplace. Safe transportation. And that's a campaign that's been launched globally. As NUMSA, I think it's still yet to really go through the structures. But what we ideally want to see is when we go to negotiations, we actually talk about the transportation of people, the commute from home, and how employers are making sure that workers get home safely, and as well as the union, so that we make sure that the commute is safe. So that's one campaign. And of course, the genocide in Palestine is massive. I mean, we've been involved in many campaigns around that.
In fact, no, ITF, there was a resolution, wasn't there, that NUMSA sponsored around Gaza?
Yes.
Talk to us about that resolution.
I mean, in the last ITF regional conference, ITF elective conference that we went to now, NUMSA sponsored a motion around the genocide in Palestine. And we were very clear that we want a ceasefire, we want the war to stop, and we want the international community to put more pressure on their governments in order to take a stance against the genocide in Palestine. So the General Secretary put a motion forward, and it was adopted. It was adopted by the region. So yay to Africa!
Yeah.
and
hashtag NUMSA Leave.
Yes. And obviously it was supported by a trade union from Zimbabwe. But I mean, also perhaps I must applaud ITF for allowing NUMSA. I mean, it's very difficult in these global federations because you have, very clear divisions of trade unions. But I must applaud the ITF for allowing that space, and also for the Congress itself adopting that resolution, because the anything we can do to move the needle, we need to do it. And also the leadership, I think with this, they have to be strong. And any view can be heard. Anyone has the right to put a motion. But I must commend the African leaders for supporting it. Yeah. Because if more international federations support such motions, we'll be able to put that pressure.
And I think what was very progressive about that motion is that it was calling for a permanent ceasefire in Gaza, an end to political support for Israel, and expressing solidarity with Palestinians struggling for freedom, which in effect, I mean, you're basically saying that, we support sanctions against Israel. We support a very, very strong push in defense of Palestine. And that is very important, as you said, because we're finding that there are many, many Western countries that are using the fig leaf of what happened on the 7th of October to justify defending what Israel is doing to Palestine.
And funny enough, not even in this conference, but in the women's conference, there was a very, even from countries where the leaders have taken a stance against, in favor of Israel. The people, the actual people are saying we are mobilizing on the ground. So leaders
they're rejecting what our government has said. Yes.
And they're coming to us and saying, how do we align? How do we build these partnerships? The government does not speak for us. So, I mean, these kind of platforms are so amazing for that kind of network because you'll find from the UK, from the US, I mean, these people are saying we do not support this particular stance, and they're starting to build campaigns in their small areas to
and that's why that's important, because it is actually the working class that's holding the governments to account. I mean, the UK has a position where they do defend Israel in terms of their official foreign policy. But if you've been watching the news, if you've been watching on TikTok and on social media, every single weekend, the working class in the UK is blocking highways. It's blocking streets because they're marching. The same is happening in America, in major cities in America. Huge marches every weekend.
Massive.
In strong opposition to the state's position.
And you know how hard the government is trying to stop this? They're actually telling me, the guys from the UK, that they put on they hide their T-shirts and they go to the march because the police are actually taking forceful action against them for wearing a pro-Palestine T-shirt. They say it's that bad, but I think also the level of intimidation from government is making them more hostile. So it's great to share those ideas and actually know that the message. And by the way, South Africa is leading this message. I think globally, we are the forefront of this campaign. So everyone wants to talk about that. So it's great to be able to network, give people ideas as to what the angles they can take, etc. So that's great. One of the campaigns that we love as NUMSA is that, and we want to see an end to the war.
So finally, as we wrap up this discussion, what are some of the things that you can say that because you've actually touched on already, where you're talking about how NUMSA is leading on on this Palestinian campaign? Are there other areas where you can say NUMSA is really representing the working class well on various issues when it comes to these international platforms?
Yeah, I mean, there's the question of the just energy transition. Like I said, it's literally all organizations that are talking about just energy transition. But even more worrying to me is our position is extremely challenged by sort of NGOs and we are, everywhere you go, our position, which is informed, by the way, we went to court, we drafted papers, we understand when we say
there's a science behind the NUMSA position.
Correct. Yeah. So we're not just saying just energy transition and we want it to be fair and equitable and all of that. We've done our homework around it, but we're getting a lot of how can I say pushback, right? But it's important for us to continue to participate in these forums because in these forums we get to assert our position that we are here to take care of the workers. We are here to make sure that load shedding stops. We are here to say this must be done at a pace, at a cost that we can afford. We cannot be taking loans of 8.5 billion without saying how we're repaying, what are the terms around it. We don't have the answers. And what we know is that, for instance, all of this consultation around energy has happened post the commitment. So you commit to the fact that we are moving away from coal. We're adopting this technology, but you have not consulted. So this was done after. So already we basically ticking boxes in a lot of the forums that we're in, but we have to be there to make sure that no more damage is done. In terms of the workers that we represent. And also for the South African public, we need the lights on and we need a model that makes sense. If you're going to just say renewables, can the renewables give us the baseload we need? No, I mean, it can't.
Unfortunately not.
So we can dream or we can be realistic. And I think with this, NUMSA is very realistic. And the more our voice is out there in these campaigns, in these meetings, in these conferences, the more we get to tell people exactly what we mean. For what the reality, by the way, because I think the picture, what's been sold out there is not the reality, but we get to tell people about our reality in South Africa.
Okay. Well, on that note, thank you so much, Zazi, for coming on to Workers' Power and explaining the work of the international desk. And we want to thank our viewers once again for joining us for another episode of Workers' Power. Don't forget to click like, don't forget to click subscribe. Remember, it is free to subscribe. And we'll see you again next week for another episode of Workers' Power with Pucks. Remember to follow NUMSA Media on YouTube. Like, subscribe, and share to as many people as you know.